All right, we are back on Takedown and the second ever full video episode of Takedown. Paul Fontaine is here with me. Now, here's something very unique about this show is that SummerSlam, the 2-day event, was Saturday and Sunday. And Paul hasn't watched any of the actual show.
Yeah.
But he knows the big news coming out of it, which is going to be our first topic, which is Brock Lesnar is back in WWE after the Cody Rhodes and John Cena match. He came out, and John Cena was right smack dab in the middle of the ring. Brock jumped in, ducked, I think he ducked a clothesline or something, and then gave him an F5, and then the show went off the air. So, Brock being back, I don't think is a surprise to us, though it may be a surprise to some. I have actually been talking about this with Dave since WrestleMania. I basically said, if Rock isn't there, or what's going to be the big thing? Could it be Brock? And he basically said the same thing that he always says, which is, they have to clear him. Legal has to clear him. And it sounds like they cleared him about a month ago, which set him up to be able to be on this show. Triple H, after the show, said that the reason he was back is because John Cena asked for him to be a part of the retirement run, which I think is 100% unadulterated bullshit. But that's Triple H these days. And now this is something you may not even know because you specifically have avoided all topics until you can actually watch SummerSlam.
Yeah.
They did away with the questions at the press conference.
Well, I don't really watch the press conferences anyways, so even if I did watch the show, I may not have known that. Although I'm sure that was a
I know I don't watch the post game either.
Yeah.
Like I just duck out right when the show is over. But
yeah, when it was on when we had the network, I would keep it on and watch it. But now you have to go to like YouTube or something, and I'm not doing that.
On the US version of Peacock, I think they just roll. The only version of Peacock, they just roll straight through. It's like one giant long 20-hour show.
That's what they used to do here, and now it's a separate show, so I don't watch it.
So people were speculating as to why is Triple H just not going to answer questions from media? And the speculation and the thing that kind of made sense to me was, well, he's kind of bowed down to his true king, who is Donald Trump. He is now a part of the he was with Trump at the White House as a part of this like presidential like fitness thing, and they acknowledged it on both nights of SummerSlam. They got booed both nights of SummerSlam. So with that lean, because I wouldn't say historically, like just of recent memory, they've been kind of down the middle politically because they don't want to offend some of their fan base. But recently, they've definitely leaned into the Trump stuff, which is a total TKO play. We saw this coming with the UFC. They are all the same company. This is not surprising again. But now it looks like they ducked out of the questions because they knew the Brock Lesnar thing was also coming. So that was their proactiveness, I guess, so that Triple H doesn't make a fool out of himself again. Okay, so let's get your thoughts here. Of course, you didn't see SummerSlam, but I don't think you needed to see SummerSlam to have an opinion on Brock Lesnar coming back to WWE.
Yeah, well, and I also want to say just about what you just talked about there, and then I'll talk about Brock. I find it interesting that they did boo the mentions of Hunter with Trump because, I mean, we talked about Hogan last week. And how he got booed on his last Netflix appearance. And I said, well, I think it had as much to do with Trump, if not more, than it did to do with the sex tape and the racist comments.
I don't think it has anything to do with the sex tape, by the way.
Yeah.
But the racist comments and the Trump lean, they're part of the same thing. I just mentioned
the tape because it was on the tape. That's all.
Right.
But but then somebody brought up in the Discord, I think it was Lisa, our friend Lisa Gifford, she asked, well, it'd be interesting to see, will they boo Hunter now that he's been all over the news with Trump? And from what you're saying, sounds like they did. So
my guess is the boo was more for Trump than it was for Triple H because he came out in night 2.
Yeah.
To do the whole, it's time, whatever. And they seem to be fine with him.
So it's him, but so they probably don't like Paul Levesque, but they don't mind Triple H. Maybe. But back to Brock. It's funny because I was getting messages and texts, and people know I'm behind, so they were like, "Did you watch it yet? Did you watch it yet?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." And it's like, so I'm like, so they don't want to tell me anything. And I was having like a conversation with somebody, and he was trying to lead me without saying what happened, and I kind of like stumbled on what it might have been, because I figured, well, it's got to be one of two things, and I figured it was either Vince or Brock,
right?
And we talked about Vince last week.
Yep.
And I even said, like, if Vince shows up, I think he's going to get cheered, and you weren't sure, and with Brock, like, and it is just me, like, for me, like, number one, like, I don't really care if they bring him back. Like, I don't, in that whole thing with Janelle Grant, like, I'm not even 100% sure what he did or didn't do. I mean, nobody knows for sure, but even if her accusations are correct, like, he was more like part of Vince's sick games than he was actually an active willing participant in it.
I mean, he didn't turn down any of the conversation, though.
Correct, but did he even think Vince was serious? Like, that, we don't know, right? So regardless, like, they made the decision that we're not going to use him. That was legal, and then now they've decided we are going to use him. So, but that being said, like, I don't even think they need to use him. So regardless of whether or not they wanted to me, it's irrelevant. Like, I don't think they need a 40, whatever he is, 47-year-old,
50, I think, right?
Yeah, 47, 48. I think he was in the 98. He was in university. So be like 77. You probably born 76, 77. Yeah, so almost 50. And, jacked up, hasn't wrestled in a few years. He's good and he's got a great presence, but do you really need him? Like, I don't know. So they must think they do, and that's fine. Fans, sounds like they probably popped, so good for them. But for me, like, I don't really care one way or the other. I'm not offended. I would, if they brought Vince back, I'd probably feel different, and I think they probably will bring Vince back. But
here's a question, because I think this is a mistake that a lot of us males do: is we go, well, we're not offended. If you were a woman, would you be offended? If you were a woman wrestling fan, would you be offended?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would depend on the woman. When I was having this conversation with the person today, I mentioned that my wife is not a wrestling fan at all. Doesn't follow it. All she knows is what I mentioned to her, and I try not to talk about wrestling with her because she doesn't watch it and she doesn't like it. But when the whole Vince stuff came down, like, I showed her a few articles and she read it, and I was interested in her feedback. And her feedback shocked the hell out of me. Like, she just said, because she looked at everything and she came into it completely open-minded, because she didn't know anything about Vince. She didn't know anything about anybody. And she's like, well, if that woman got in a relationship with a 75-year-old man, she knew what she was doing, and she took a payoff, and then it didn't go well, and he didn't pay her, and it's about money. Like, that was what she said. And that's a pragmatic approach. So as far as she's concerned, like, I don't think she would care one way or the other about Brock. As far as, women, I'm sure there's some women fan that, they may not even know, like, I'm sure there's a good portion of fans that don't even know about how Brock is involved in this.
By the way, the women that I've seen who are wrestling fans reacting to this has been 100% negative.
But are they WWE fans? Are they WWE women fans, or are they wrestling fans that don't like WWE anyways? And they're just looking. They're going to probably complain about just about anything WWE.
I don't know. I've seen less tribalism from women than I've seen from dudes. So
fair enough. And I'm not, like, again, I'm not dismissing, like, if a WWE fan who's a woman is offended, I'm not going to tell her she's wrong. Like, no question. Like, she's got every right to be offended. I just, like I said, I don't really try to think if I even know any women. Like, I know women who kind of follow it, but most of the women I know that like wrestling don't like WWE.
But why though?
I think Vince is a big part of it.
That there's a reason why.
Yeah, for sure.
This specter has been the cloud hanging over the company.
But yet, when you look at, like, Evolution, for instance, and the TV that we got right after Evolution, there was a lot of women in that crowd, and in those crowds, I should say. And when you listen to the pops, they sounded different. They were young and they were female. And so I'd be interested in what, again, and I'm not dismissing what the women you talked to said by any stretch, but I wonder how those women would feel. And are we now going to see a shift in the WWE audience? Are there going to be less women watching? Are there going to be less kids watching? Because maybe the women are bringing their kids, like women, bring kids to sporting events too. That'll be interesting to see. We don't get the demos anymore, other than for SmackDown, I guess. But so is there going to be a shift to more men watching? Are there going to be women leaving and more going to AEW? I don't know. If you like women's wrestling, and again, that's the other thing. Like, I don't see not a lot of evidence to support that women just like wrestling, like from what I've seen, like whether good wrestling, whether it's men or women, they don't really care. In fact, I think there's a case to be made that they like hot men as much as we like hot women, So, it's interesting. Like, I don't, if they lose women, then that's a huge mistake. And I guess we'll find out.
So I think if you read the lawsuit, you can surmise that Vince and Brock, are very conversational about this type of endeavor. So it led me to believe that it probably happened before and it was maybe a game between them. But that's me reading the full lawsuit as well, and that took hours. So,
and I'll be honest, I didn't read it. I read a lot of recaps of it and Dave's thorough breakdown of it in the Observer. So I felt like by the time I finished reading Dave's breakdown,
you probably read more than most, but anyways. Yeah. Okay, so my take on the Brock thing.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because I expected it around WrestleMania time. I can't even be disappointed because in order to be disappointed, you have to have expectation. And this version of WWE, the TKO version of WWE, I literally have no expectation. I have no expectation for them to be morally responsible. And we're talking about pro wrestling as it is. I don't have an expectation for them to think of anything other than profit. And if their mentor in this whole thing is the UFC, we know what that looks like. And that looks worse than WWE. So this is the thing that I think the thing that I have to think through is how much worse does it get? Not is this it? Because if we look at the UFC, it's probably going to get worse. I mean, there's so many examples of the UFC just outdoing themselves in that sense. Dana White slapping his wife right on camera in the face is one. Conor McGregor and his legal troubles. This dude is in the news for nefarious things time and time again, and the only thing that keeps him out of fighting for the UFC is because he plays games with them. And
plus he probably can't even fight anymore.
They probably don't care necessarily about that because then he'll get in the ring and he'll get destroyed and someone will be made by destroying him. So they probably don't care about that. John Jones and his reckless behavior, and that doesn't stop him from fighting. What stops him from fighting is he asks for too much money. So it's stuff like that. And then this other thing where this dude is wearing an ankle bracelet.
It's a Treat dumbass.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So what my worry is that it just gets worse and not better. But at the same time, I think the worst thing for me as a wrestling fan would be if they continue to gravitate towards what you were just talking about. What fan base does the UFC gravitate closer and closer to, which is this demographic of white males who fit that MAGA stereotype? That is where their lean is. And those people are spending money like crazy to go to these shows too. So that is the worry for me. And that has less to do with Brock Lesnar than it does with TKO and how they want it to run.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, and I mean, and obviously we're making a generalization here because I mean, I'm sure there's people of all I mean, obviously there's people of all demographics that support Trump, or he wouldn't have been elected president, but WWE traditionally has stayed away from that, and now that TKO is in charge, they're leaning towards where they probably always maybe wanted to lean politically. And I mean, obviously they put Trump on their biggest pay-per-view they ever did. So there was there's that relationship. But I think that where you might see a pushback because TKO, again, they don't have morals, but they do have a commitment to make money. And if they start to see a pushback from sponsors and or fans, then you may see them pull away from that. And obviously with UFC, they have not done that. And Dana White has
they are very comfortable leaning into a specific type of sponsor at the same time.
True. Yeah. But again, like Dana White has gone out and said, like, if you don't want to sponsor us, like, fuck you. We don't need your money. And I think we're a bit away from like Paul Levesque saying that.
He couldn't get away with it, by the way, because he's not even as savvy as Dana White is.
Well, no, and not only that, but he's got Nick Khan above him. So
yeah.
Perhaps Nick Khan would say it, and could probably get away with it. But I don't think he ever would, because I think he's too smart, and I don't know what the word is, tactful, than Dana White, who just doesn't care. Yeah. Strategic, that's a good word.
It's almost like sleazy strategic.
yeah, but he's a smart guy, and I'm sure he has his own personal morals. They probably just don't line up with ours.
Yeah.
And again, again, the commitment there is to the bottom line. It's not to a particular party or moral standard. Although, again, like if it benefits them to be in bed with Trump, then that's what they're going to do. And obviously that's the way they've leaned, because everything the last couple of weeks has led you to where we are now. And I mean, even, like the comments that Nick and Paul made about Vince, kind of leads you to believe, okay, they don't really care about this lawsuit anymore. Whatever's going to happen with this lawsuit is going to happen, but either they don't think Vince is going to get convicted or they don't care. And I think it's pretty clear they don't believe Janelle Grant, whether or not Vince is convicted or not. They obviously don't think that it's going to bounce back on them at all, or Brock for that matter, or they wouldn't have brought him back.
I do wonder about the Grant case, because when I saw what happened, one of the things I thought about was, I wonder if they believe a settlement is near. Now, Janelle Grant's team came out today with a statement that made you believe otherwise.
Okay.
If they believe that Vince, like, let's say, and I think a lot of things have to happen for this, but let's say this case actually goes all the way through and Vince is found guilty in some way. How connected is he to them, and will it be detrimental to them if that happens? If I sort of look at it like if you think about the Bill Cosby scenario.
Yep.
Bill Cosby, I think Bill Cosby is currently out of jail. Like, he was in jail and then something happened and he's now out of jail. I don't know if that had to do with him being innocent necessarily, but there was something where but the Cosby Show name is kind of like in the mud, right? Like Felicia Rashad, or unfortunately Malcolm Jamal Warner. They were all still very, I wouldn't say they. I think Felicia Rashad is very positive about him, but they would still call him Mr. Cosby, and I think it probably hurt them in the public eye in order to still do that. So, but they were also so much more respected as individuals than pro wrestlers, because they're actors and they're very thoughtful, generally thoughtful people. So that's an interesting thing, is to see if WWE goes down with him And if they become sort of mud, or if they can figure out how to separate themselves, which is what they were doing, by the way. They had sort of wiped the slate clean with Vince, and only recently has it seemed like, maybe they're trying to get this dude back, because that's the other question coming out of this is, if Brock is back, do they bring Vince back on TV, which is something you alluded to last week.
Yeah, and I mean, and they've kind of been, I think the way to put it is normalizing him, in the sense that they're trying to distance what he did or what he was accused of doing behind the scenes from what he did in terms of the industry and the creative and executive force behind what WWE became. And what we're going to talk about the Cody interview with Bill Simmons, but in that interview, which obviously I'm sure had a lot of people listening and watching it, they mentioned Vince, and they just kind of talked about him like they did.
Cody was very smart, but he mentioned Vince first in sort of a casual conversation kind of way. And
Bill just kind of fluffed it off like Vince had that stuff and he's gone now. Like bad man gone.
I mean, they literally had a conversation of, I can't ask you about this because you're going to give me a shitty answer, and thus nothing is going to come out of this.
And Cody's response was, and then that shitty answer might give you an even shittier question, which will come back with an even shittier answer.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of funny. And he's like, isn't my media training paying off? And laughed. And I got a kick out of that. But I mean, and between that and the comments that Triple H made, where he said that, nobody's perfect and accusations are just accusations. And then Nick went even further, where I can't even remember the exact wording of what he said, but it's not like they're excusing what Vince did. They're just kind of saying, well, either he did or he didn't, and that's for the courts to decide. But he did create this company, and he did, bring us to where we got to. And that's kind of, and then, and Cody giving credit to Vince for bringing him back and all this stuff, like, and then talking about the past as if, the past it's almost like it was a different guy that they're talking about.
I have a prediction for you, by the way, if they were to bring Vince back. I have two different scenarios.
Well, I will say, and I'll let you do yours. I just think no, you know what? You do you.
Okay, I have three different scenarios. Okay. Let's say next year at WrestleMania. Let's say whatever the night 2 main event is. And at the end of the night 2 main event, whomever has the championship raises it above their head. And all of a sudden, No Chance in Hell starts.
Oh my God.
Vince walks down and does the 80-year-old version of the Vince walk, which I'm sure his knees are probably like going to be sliding out of his sockets by doing that. He comes in, he just looks at the guy, whomever the guy is, and he smiles. I think the crowd goes absolutely apeshit. They go crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, we saw a moment. This is amazing." So that's one scenario. That would be the right one if they wanted to get him.
And they're in Vegas next year, right? Yeah.
That would be the right one to get him cheered. The second scenario is he does a similar thing to open up Raw or SmackDown. Same thing. Music like to kick off the show. Music goes off. The Lemmings, because they hear that music and it reminds them of being 12 years old, they get super excited. And then he comes in and he says like one sentence and then he gets out of there. I think, again, crazy, insane cheering. The third scenario would be the one that I wouldn't do, which is that thing happens and then he cuts a promo. Because during the promo, A, he looks really old. B, he's going to screw it up. And C, you're out there for an extended amount of time and the music has died and the fans have kind of settled down and they realize what it is. They're able to think about it. And then I think he does get booed. But those are the three scenarios. So if they want him to come out and be cheered, I would do the WrestleMania one that I suggested, because I don't think there's a way he gets booed if it's that.
So, yeah, I mean, I would obviously agree with you. And I would just say that if they were going to bring him back, Like, and this is strictly speaking as a fan or someone who watches the product. I would not want him anywhere near creative. I shouldn't. Yeah, he could be a voice that they listen to in terms of like some big picture items, because I think there's certain things about the business that, you know, like he's got a good sense for. But in terms of like day to day, you know, running a show, like no, you know, and even like smaller angles, no, just, you know, like, you know, Hunter could ask him, and for all we know, he's probably doing that now. But in terms of like on screen, yeah, like something like that where it's like a ceremonial thing, obviously not a regular character. We know Vince himself is not comfortable being on camera, looking the way he does and being the age that he is. And oh, my cat's doing a run in. And and then like I would say, yeah, so not a regular performer. And then in terms of like his actual role, I mean, he could be like a brand ambassador, you know, kind of thing, kind of like a Dana White, but a little like not as high profile as Dana. You know, maybe more like what the Fertitas were when they ran the show, like where they're just kind of like a name in the back that is kind of associated with the company, but doesn't really do anything. You know, if
I would keep him off of television, but I would just have him keep sweet talking the Prince. That's all I would have him there for.
Yeah. He's obviously got a good relationship with the Prince, and then, you know, but then the question then is he interested in doing that, like, or does he want to run the show?
I think if he's dealing with Saudi Arabia, that keeps him in the business game with his whatever his new company is that he's doing,
and at the table for like the negotiations. And you know what? That may be another reason they want him back, because they are going to be negotiating the rights for the network or the Peacock, you know, whatever it is. Like that's coming soon. So maybe they think that networks still are, you know, Vince brings something to the table that nobody else does. They may think that. I don't agree with it, but they may think that.
I don't want to see him. I almost got that icky feeling seeing Brock so soon, and it's mostly from the crowd going nuts over him.
I haven't seen it, but I can tell you right now, I won't feel that way, just because I probably don't have those feelings about Brock that some people do, and I'm not questioning the way they feel. I'm just telling you how I feel.
It's less about Brock, and it's more about wrestling always finding its way to being in the mud and making you feel like you're kind of a low common denominator person for liking wrestling. That's the ick that I feel when I watch wrestling sometimes. And in these moments, like normally, like you have an event, like for the most part, SummerSlam, 2 nights, completely fine content, right? Like it was content. They set up specific moments, and we'll get to this at the end. You haven't seen John Cena and Cody Rhodes yet, but they outkicked your expectation with that match.
Well, I was expecting them to do better than Mania. So
yeah, it's way better than Mania. Okay, by the way,
I will say there with those fans that you're talking about, though, there's 3 things. Number 1, they don't know about the accusations. Number 2,
they have to know about.
I'm just saying
they may not have
read
the lawsuit.
There's some people that don't. I'm just saying there's some that don't know. That's one possible option. 2, they know and they just don't care. And 3, they know and they don't believe Janelle Grant. Those are the 3 options of the people that are cheering. And I think the majority of people who are paying hundreds and in some cases thousands of dollars to go to a WWE show probably fall into one of those categories. You know, like you look at a Bill Simmons.
If you spend that much money,
yeah,
to go to the show, you probably don't care too much about the things that I care about, which is totally fine. Like I'm not tell people how to spend their money. Like wrestling it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
But the idea that you're at an event that makes you feel great about something, which is I think half of the reason why UFC does such a great job with their shows, because people feel something at those shows there, whether it's the best of the best is fighting or just the violence. It's like it's like a live car crash, whatever that thing is that gets people to shell out their money, like more power to them. But you have to check something at the door, I think. Now, I don't think anybody bought tickets to SummerSlam thinking that Brock was coming back. If they had promoted Brock, that would have been different, right? You bring him back as a surprise because you've already made the money, and it's not going to affect that show. So
but then the pop that he gets is your answer, like whether the majority of people are cheering or not.
They may have just, it may have just been the moment, though. Like that's what they're there for, is that moment.
That feeling you described about Brock sounds to me like the feeling I have whenever Donald Trump shows up at a UFC event. Like I'm to the point now where it's like, if I hadn't already bought the show, I'm not buying it. I'll just say to hell with it. I'm not watching. I give you a call and say, hey, you know what? I'm not covering UFC this time. I saw Trump and I said, nope, I'm out. Like that's how I feel when I hear that American Badass kick in and I see him coming with Kid Rock behind him and his idiot sons, and and Dana just glad handling, and John Anik running up to him and shaking his hand, and Daniel Cormier says, hey Don, no, I'm done, I'm out. And
no, look, it's not like that yet. But it could, right? That is where I don't want to see WWE get to, is where
that's what I might feel like if I see Vince again. I think, and but again, like a lot of my thing with Vince isn't even what happened. Like I was, obviously I'm not glad for what he did or was accused of doing to Janelle Grant. I was not glad about that at all, or any of the dozens of other women he did it to. But I was glad to get rid of him as a person that enjoys the product when it's good, and him being gone was a positive to the product. So in that sense, like selfishly, like no morals involved. Like I just don't want Vince around, period. So I can get on a moral high ground and say, oh yeah, I'm all for the women. It's like, meanwhile, it's like, no, I just want a good wrestling show to watch. And that's the thing when we come back to Brock, like I don't think he makes the product better. So that's where I'm like, okay, what are they going to do with him? And am I going to like it? Like, and I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll see.
Okay, let's move on. The second topic is I asked you to listen to this Cody Rhodes on Bill Simmons interview, specifically about the conversation surrounding AEW and him leaving AEW. What did you gather from his comment about feeling disrespected, not naming Tony Khan, and kind of like saying, I met with Vince and Bruce and I still didn't think I was going there. I still thought I was going to stay with AEW, but feeling disrespected, like it's one thing feeling disrespected by this corporate entity, but it's another thing being disrespected by something I helped create.
Actually, I could be wrong, but I think he didn't say I helped create. I think he said
I created.
Yeah. That's what he said. Okay. So Jeff and I had a conversation about this Jeff Hawkins, who, when we did one of our retro editions of the Dynamite show, where we look back on, I think it was the disastrous December 18th, 2019 episode where Tony Khan just had to, get rid of everybody else and do all the creative himself because he wasn't happy with it. And we talked about Brandy, and we didn't remember how big a part of the show she was. And also what was very notable was the announcers, and not just JR, because JR will shit on anything. All of the announcers were like burying Brandy and her angle. And that thing had no chance. Like, regardless of the fact that it was terrible, whether you think that or not, and most people did, the fact is that they had no chance of succeeding. So I think what happened, Jeff and I both came to the same conclusion that a lot of what happened with Cody had to do with Brandy, and the fact that she was being sabotaged by the announcers. So anything she did, she wasn't going to have a chance of succeeding. And there was some good stuff she did, like, the stuff I remember with Dan Lambert, but he buried her too. And then with the Shaq when she was supposed to wrestle in that match with Shaq, but then she got pregnant. So I think it was Red Velvet stepped in for her, but she had that famous line, "Who told you it was open mic night, bitch," or something. And yeah, so all that stuff. And so I think what happened was when they came around for renewals, Tony was, he was probably going to sign her to do whatever she was doing behind the scenes. She was what was she called the
brand ambassador,
the brandy ambassador. And Cody, obviously he would have been giving him a deal or maybe just picking up his option. But then, part of the negotiations may have been, you know what? Yeah, we want you, but we don't want your wife. And
okay, but that tells me though,
yeah,
that Tony isn't smart.
Or the fact is, Tony on his side didn't think he needed Cody anymore.
That is the other thing, because I think Tony is smart,
right?
So if he knew that Brandy was persona non grata, he had to have known that Cody would not take that.
And who else was in that company at the time Cody left, who had just shown up and was more or less the shiny new toy, and everybody loved him at the time? CM Punk.
Was he there or was he on his way? I don't even remember the time.
No, he was there.
Okay.
So Cody left in early 22, and that Punk came in September 21. So he was still at the height. He was in the middle of that MJF feud when Cody left. Like that was the height of his popularity and the height of AW's popularity, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so in his mind, and I think if you go back to 2019, obviously Tony needed Cody in some ways, but if in 2019 Punk was available, but he wasn't interested in going there, if he could have had Punk instead of Cody, I think Tony would have taken Punk. Like if it was a choice between Tony and Punk in 2019. In 2022, it may have been a choice where he said, "Hey, I have Punk, I don't need Cody." Okay. That may be, I don't know that. And that could also be playing into what happened with the Elite and Punk, where all of a sudden now we got problems with Hangman, we got problems with the Bucks, who were friends with Cody. I don't know.
The Brandy conversation has to be a part of this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
She is very adamant that he tells this story, seemingly. Like, I think she wants the story to be out. So we have heard that. We have heard the Brandy piece of this. And I have always kind of, like, my defense to that is Tony Khan is too smart to create that fight. You could always find something for Brandy to do. You could do what he's done to other people and say, okay, you're going to do this, and then they disagree, and then you send them home, right? Like this is a thing with him. So that's the part where I balk when it comes down to Brandy. Though I got to imagine some of it has to be with her involved.
Well, you talk about finding something for her to do. Like he may have offered her a job, but he just didn't want her on screen. And he didn't, and maybe Cody and Brandy both at that time thought she had a lot to offer on screen and wanted her on screen, and that could have been part of it.
But she could simply just be a valet. And like you said, she was pregnant. She's gonna have. She has a baby. Yep. She's not gonna be there all the time because she's gonna want to take care of her baby. Maybe the baby comes out on the road with them and stuff, but. Yeah. Her responsibilities would have to be less just because she is now going to be a mother.
Yeah, but not doing it and being told we don't want you to do it, those are two different things.
But you got to be savvier than that. Yeah, you got to be able to have this conversation in a way that makes people feel good about it.
So Tony is smart enough that maybe he thought about it, played the chess game, and said, okay, I'm going to tell him this, and he's probably going to leave, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so the other thing, the other part of this, and this is something that I have firsthand knowledge of because I did those interviews with Tony Khan and Dave. And around the time, and we did a few of them, so I'm conflating things, right? I don't even remember the time frame of this. I had felt just by having these conversations on air and just sort of shooting the stuff, I felt that Tony himself was not getting enough of the credit of what was happening. And Cody was kind of given more credit than maybe he deserved in certain things. And I remember thinking like, oh, like they don't mind Cody taking the credit necessarily because he's so good at the media stuff. And he is the most, I guess, second or third most well-known person behind Jericho and Moxley. And so that's a face and that's a name, and thus you kind of let him do the media. He's great about it. But when the interviewers are like, yeah, when you created this thing and when you did this part of creative, and Tony's in the back thinking like, that's actually not him. That's probably me or whatever. I sensed right then and there that, okay, like as long as things are good, this is cool. But when things are not good, this might not be cool. Mm-hmm. And so you remember when Tony decided that he was going to take over creative and he was going to be the single person in creative, right? Mm-hmm. And at that time, by him taking the reins, what it also said is, you, Kenny Omega, you, Young Bucks, you, Cody, like, I'm the guy when it comes to this stuff, not you guys. And I always thought that Cody saw himself like his dad. He's talent, but he's also kind of running the show. And so when you take that away from him, and look, I don't know exactly what each person were doing, but I also know, like, behind the scenes in the Elite, just the four of those dudes, like, they weren't always getting along. There was some frustration and stuff along the way, but that's natural. That's startup stuff. Like, that's right. Normal. I've been in lots of moments like that where these people that you love so much and you bring together and you create this thing, and then you have a difference of opinion. Then it's like, who's got the most power? Who's got the biggest voice? Who's gonna, throw the biggest fit? So all of those things were happening at this time. And I always wondered if Cody was going, because, Cody's personality, he's kind of I've only met him in person like two, three, 4 times. Like, so it's not a ton, right? But my gauge of it was, Brandy's fucking cool. And Cody's kind of a square. Like that was my interpretation of them.
He's kind of like, I mean, I've never met him, but I've followed his whole career. He comes off as just like a regular, like a wrestling fan, like just a wrestling fan. And especially like when you listen, like in that interview, and I'll tell people, if you haven't listened to it, I would recommend it, because
I thought he came off really well in that interview. By
the
way,
he did, but
sounded like he was like a cool dude to hang out with.
It's a different Cody though. Like right away, it's the first thing I noticed. His voice was different. Like, he didn't have that put on voice that he normally has when he's on TV or even at a press conference or even on a media junket like he used to do in AEW. Like, this just sounded like, man, if Cody, if you're just hanging out with Cody, this is kind of what it would have sounded like. And he seemed very comfortable. But then at some point in the interview, he mentioned that he had been asked by an interviewer at one point. He said the name and I can't remember who it was, who asked
Chris
him
Van
to scare.
Vliet.
Yeah, Chris Van Vliet, you're right. He asked him the scariest question he's ever been asked, and it was like, "Are you ever not working?" And he said, like, I don't even know at this point, because I've been doing this for so long. Like, and it got me to thinking, like, all these, like, and he took some criticism for some of his opinions and some of the stuff he said, like particularly the Montreal screw job and all that. And I believe him. Like, I think this is what he actually thinks.
See, I just think he's a dork when he says stuff like that.
Yeah. And even when he's talking about Unreal, like he's talking about, oh man, that sounds cool. Yeah. Like he's just like, and that might be promotion, or it might be how he really feels. Like, he kind of wants to see this because he wants to see how stuff is put together. And every time they brought up Shawn Michaels and the things he did, he's like, oh, is that him, or is he just working?
He explained who he is, though. He said Dusty treated him like a child. He overprotected the hell out of him. Yeah. And so like that explained a lot if you understand.
And Dusty,
Cody.
it sounded like Dusty worked him constantly. So he probably never had any idea what was real and what wasn't.
But at the same time, I do think he came across as very cool.
Yeah,
in that interview. That's why I thought it was a great.
But I
thing
do
for
get
him
the
to
nerdy
do.
stuff like you talk about too, because
Yeah.
I mean, he shows up and he's always wearing his 3-piece suit, and you know, he's walking his dog, and you know, and I'm sure with his kid, he's just like, okay, you know, like what I can't remember her name, but he probably dresses her and you know, be polite, say thank you, you know.
So ultimately, my
Yeah.
takeaway is if he ever talks about this, I think his side and I think Tony's side are going to be a little bit different. But I think he truly believes that he was sold a little bit of a bill of goods about what AEW was going to be. And he decided that if I'm just going to be a wrestler, I might as well just be a wrestler on the other side because I can make an impact by using my AEW name.
Mm-hmm.
And
I also think that he opened this door, and he mentioned it a couple times in the interview. I think he opened this door because he wants people to buy his book. Because he talked about
if it comes out.
Yeah. Well, he said, I'm thinking about writing a book. And then, you know, and then he talks about AEW for the first time. So,
okay, I told Dave, I said, he's writing this book. And Dave goes, well, he's not going to tell the story. And I go, well, then he can't write the book because the book's going to be bullshit. And he's like, you're right. He's got to tell the story if he's going to write the book. But he agreed with Tony Khan. And if Tony Khan, if they go against it, then Tony Khan's going to have to come out with his side.
And he agreed, but is there paperwork? Did he sign anything, or is it
handshake agreement, brother?
Yeah. And if that's the case, I mean, I'm not saying Cody is distrustful or anything, but I mean, obviously, if he opens that door, then Tony can come back and say. But I think Cody's smart enough politically that he's not going to bury Tony, but he may be a little more honest than what he has been so far. Tony can.
Do you think not mentioning Tony's name is a WWE thing? Like you cannot say this man's name, or do you think Cody did that specifically because he's frustrated with him?
I will go back to, I think Cody is so ingrained in that WWE system that he just probably wouldn't say the name because of the fact that, you know, like they wouldn't say it on TV. So it's not even a conscious thing that he's doing. He just doesn't want to say. He's okay with saying Kenny Omega and the Bucks because even occasionally they get mentioned in WWE. Mm-hmm. Although, I mean, there was times like he never once said Paul Heyman. He always called him Mr. Heyman. Which I found very interesting. It was kind of weird almost. Maybe go back to the dork thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was I think it was a subconscious thing that where he didn't mention Tony Khan because he never even really talked about Tony without saying his name. Like it was all him and the Bucks and Kenny. Like, and he didn't mention Hangman either. You know, and he was one of the key guys at the beginning too. But so I don't think it was that. It was more just that he didn't really, probably in his brain, just won't say the name because it's just not something you do when you're in WWE. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. This is we generally do 3 topics. We really only had 2, but I wanted to throw this third one out. But it's unfortunately you haven't seen the match yet, and I was kind of wondering when you watch great matches. And an AEW great match a lot of the times is different from a WWE great match, which is also slightly different from a New Japan style great match. I haven't watched TNA wrestling in years and years and years, so I don't know what a great match there looks like.
It would be more like a hybrid between AEW and WWE, probably.
So watching this John Cena and Cody Rhodes match, and as I'm watching it, it's every trick in the book to get to make John Cena look like the old John Cena. It is, lots of just big moves and kickouts of big moves. But I'm also watching it and thinking like, man, there is so much history behind John Cena, the wrestler. Like I've seen so many of John Cena's matches and I have enjoyed him as a character for so many years. And so there's history in that. And I'm watching Cody Rhodes and I'm like, I like this version of Cody Rhodes a lot. So much respect for him in his work over the last several years. And I watched it thinking, if I was to rate this unbiasedly, Like just watching it and going like, what's a better match? This match or name your favorite AEW match of the year. Like just give me a match that you really love from AEW this year.
The Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay against Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher.
Okay.
That may have been my favorite match of the year in AEW.
On the level of athleticism, on the level of timing of moves, on the level of like in awe kind of moments.
And the story behind it. You know, just that was a big part of it for that match for me.
That match, heads and shoulders in an unbiased viewing above this match. But I like this match better for my personal taste because of my relationship with both of those guys and the story that they told on this stage with WWE production, with the John Cena theme song, with John Cena breaking the fourth wall, with like all of these different things, right? I love Kenny Omega as well. I love, I'm a fan of Will Ospreay. I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite guys. Takeshita and Kyle are obviously on the come up, and they may be in 5 years those same guys as Omega and Ospreay. So my emotional attachment to that match is a little bit less than it is a lot less. Actually,
fair enough.
Than it is to this. And so while I would say that match is much better, like if you were giving a Meltzer scale than Cody and Cena, I actually like the Cody and Cena match better, almost better than any AEW match I've seen this year. And it's just because of what I like about wrestling as well as my connection to those guys.
Well, when you talk about the Meltzer scale, I mean, the 5-star scale, and in some cases we go a little bit over. For me, like that's about personal. So I'm not anyways, necessarily rating it the same way Dave does, even though often we're very close. It's
like I think Dave's giving this match minimum 4 3/4 stars.
Okay, fair enough. And the thing is, and if you look at it, he's pretty consistent. For me, like it's funny you asked this question because I was thinking a lot about it because there was a match on Thursday and I did see the match, Kyle Fletcher and Dustin Rhodes, that Dave gave 5 stars to. And I thought that was insane. Like I liked the match. I thought it was a great match, but 5 stars, no way. Like that's just what I thought. I gave it 4.5.
Yeah.
But I'm looking like, if I compare that to Mercedes and Tony at the All In, like no way is that match better than
and
Mercedes,
you know what?
and Tony.
I didn't like that match as much as everyone else did.
What, Mercedes and Tony? Okay. Yeah. But I mean, you can compare it to the Bucks and you didn't like the Bucks.
I hated that match.
Okay, there you go.
No, so hate is strong. I just expected a little bit.
Everybody likes different things.
You know what? I think I'm gonna have to figure out a new rating scale for matches that Rick Knox is the referee in, because I'm automatically gonna hate it because he's not gonna do jack shit in that match, and there's gonna be no rules.
But even you can go to the main event then. But I think he gave the main event like 5.5.
I love the main event, by the way.
I gave the main event 5 stars.
Yeah.
I hated the match, but I appreciated. I loved the story of the match. I just hated some of the stuff they did in the match. But again, and then I saw a match on G1, and as my podcast partner would put it, he'll put over some random mid-card G1 match. I saw Konosuke Takeshita and Shingo Takagi, and oh my god, was that match
those guys are into bangers, man.
I gave that match 5 1/4 stars. Like this match was incredible.
What night was it?
It was the night 6, I think.
What did Dave give it?
4 3/4.
Okay.
So, and there was a match earlier in that show that he gave the same rating to that I really liked as well, but I didn't give it. I gave it like 4.5, and it was Zack Sabre Jr. and I can't remember who he was wrestling, but it doesn't matter because it's Zack, and Dave gives every Zack match 4.5 stars at least. Just kidding. But no, like, so I'm watching these great matches from like different companies because then I go back to the Evolution pay-per-view and I had that 3-way as the main event. And I gave that one, I think it was either 4 3/4 or 5. I think it was 4 3/4. So you got all these great matches from the different companies, and they're all so different. And based on how you're describing the Cody Cena match, I'm sure I'm going to be in that same range as Dave. But then there's going to be people that are going to look at it and they're going to like, that's a 3-star match. with a bunch of mirrors and smoke and mirrors. But then other people are going to look at the Dustin and Kyle match and they're like, oh, well, they use blood and chairs and this and that. And you take all that away. It's like a 2-star match. And it's like, no, you got to factor everything. And you've got to factor in, like with the Dustin and Kyle match, like, oh my God, like this might be Dustin's last match that he ever has. And he's trying to defend this title, and you got Kyle Fletcher who's willing to do anything. Like, it's a great story. And so, like, while I may criticize Dave for giving it 5, I shouldn't. I'm not criticizing his opinion, but I don't agree with it. But I gave it 4.5. So I'm just saying, it's like, go out of your way to see this match. It's a great match. It's on Collision. Like, I don't know why you put it on Collision, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I think that it's all important. And I think no matter what show you're watching, there's probably going to be different things that are important to you. And most people aren't like us that try to watch everything. And I'm even more crazy than you, whereas I'm literally watching almost everything. But if you're a fan of WWE, you're looking for one thing. If you're a fan of AEW, you're looking for another thing. And the more they branch out and appeal to their own audiences, I think we're going to see more and more of those differences. And WWE is going to lean more towards the production and the stories, the very simple stories, but the easy to relate stories. And AEW is going to lean more into the athleticism, and that's great. They're both servicing their own fan bases, so I don't really have a problem with either one of them.
All right, that's it for Takedown, and we're gonna have to figure out if Paul is not caught up, how I get him to
I'll catch up, but by the next big show, I'm sure I'll be caught up. Although I will say at this point, I'm leaning towards not getting Forbidden Door. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, I didn't get it last year, so we'll see. Like, I don't see where they're going for the big matches, and I guess
a lot of it is going to probably be last minute too.
And that's the thing. And so am I going to pay $50 for stuff that was put together last minute? I don't know. Tony and Athena intrigues me, but that's it. Like, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's an interesting show because I'm thinking Sunday night,
and Heat Wave's free. Just kidding.
Oh God. I'm actively avoiding that. I know you love.
I know you are,
and I avoid it so much now. All right, we'll be back for Paul. I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.